Hello everyone. Today I would love to respond to a request I've had from one of my viewers. I don't know if he's a subscriber or not, but he's a captain with the United States Air Force. And so I would like to read just excerpts of what he's asking me. This is one that's really got me excited, so I'll jump right into it. My name is, I'm not going to mention his name right quick, don't want to embarrass him without his permission, but he's a captain in the United States Air Force in pilot training at Shepherd Air Force Base in Wichita Falls, Texas. He says his class has been given an opportunity to take GoPro cameras to their Euro-NATO joint jet pilot training. And so what they're wanting to do, they're in training with Americans, Italians, Dutch, and Danish pilots, and they want to make an awesome YouTube video for their class. It's sort of an assignment they've been given. And so they're flying the T-38C Talon, it says, which lands at about 150 knots. I'm not sure quite what a knot is, but I'm going to find out for sure. It's pretty fast, I'm sure, but, you know, slow as they're landing. So he's asking these questions. What settings, resolution, frame rate, Protune on off do you believe GoPro filmed on their commercial? He's talking about the commercial that you see when you first go to their website, or it's actually sort of the famous commercial that started out the whole GoPro thing. You may have seen that. If not, I'll put a link to it in the description of this. He says, I imagine it depends on the style of shot it is. I'm curious how they got such vibrant, smooth time-lapse shots in the earlier part of the commercial, as well as how all their images are so sharp and vibrant with color. The only time I consider the background complicated would be when we get close to the ground for landing. He is aware of the fact that YouTube overcompresses complicated areas. Now, what the captain will find out is his video on his computer, on his television screen, at roughly 35 megs per second, which it records that will look brilliant, even in the complex areas most of the time. When it goes to YouTube, it will degrade very much. And I suspect that there must be some commercial level that YouTube allows some of these people like GoPro to upload at and to render out at that allows better quality than what us regular Joe Blows get. I'm just saying most of what he's seen on there is 1080p 60, I'm sure, but we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. It's not very complicated unless they're landing. However, we are about to enter a formation phase, which should include some pretty incredible close-up shots of other aircraft. I still wouldn't worry about that. Most of your aircrafts are either like white or gray or blue. I know they're monotone type colors. I don't think you probably fly aircraft with strange color patterns on them. You can have a lot of blue sky around. You're going to get awesome resolution, and even when it transfers to YouTube, it should look great. So he's going to send me some sample footage, and he actually has. I've not looked at this yet, but I am going to go look at some of the sample footage that he's done. I do know what he's hoping for, looking for. First of all, do you need to be in Protune? I don't think so. Most of the time you're going to be shooting this, it's going to be well lit, right? I'm guessing it will be. Daytime shots. You're not going to be trying to shoot anything at night. It doesn't matter either way. If you're trying to shoot in very low light, the Hero3 does not perform very well, even in Protune mode. I would say it's maybe 15% better in Protune. What Protune does allow you to do is allow you to go in and do some very precise color adjustments. If you want to, you're asking about how do they get it to look so vibrant and sharp and everything, I would say just about anything I see on the demo video that we are going to have attached to this could be done without Protune. Hopefully they've given you the Hero3 Plus. Now I'll say this, the Hero3 Plus is supposed to be sharper than the regular Hero3 Black Edition. I don't think that it is. I think up close it is. I think that from a distance it's not quite as sharp, but the color is a bit better. I would say it's probably, once again, 15-20% better color that you're going to get from the Hero3 Plus. So maybe they've given you those. Don't be down if it's just a little bit softer than you get with a regular Hero3. Now, the reason I mention that is the video you're talking about was probably shot with the first generation Hero3, the one that I've seen, because that video's been around before the Hero3 Plus came out. How do they get the smooth time lapses? If you'll notice, the time lapses I think you're talking about are ones where the camera's mostly stationary. I did see one where it's on a dolly. There's like some ships out floating in a bay, and it's like the camera moves a little bit over time. I don't know what kind of mechanism they had it on that made it move. There are some tracking devices that the pros have that, well, like a dolly type thing, a slider that will slide over time. So I noticed that one, but most of the time these time lapses that you're seeing where the clouds are all coming and everything, they actually set that down, and you set your Hero 3 to record like a photo about every 5 seconds. That seems to work really well for me. And you shoot a photo sequence, which you can bring into the free GoPro Studio. And then you can export that time lapse, and it shows those clouds flowing overhead, right? And the various different things, the wind blowing the trees, cars and stuff going past. However, what you might be also considering time lapse, where you see things slowed down really nice slow, like where they're surfing or they're skiing and there's real nice slow down parts. Most of that I would say is shot 1080p 60. So I would, depending on what you're wanting to do, you got to make your own judgment, I guess, on the field of view. Play around with medium and wide field of view. I happen to think medium is just great. It's a much wider field of view than almost any other camera you get, and it doesn't look super distorted or unnatural. There may be some instances, though, where you want to see this very wide field of view instead of this field of view. Most of your camcorders are getting this, your standard camcorders before the Hero 3 came out. Even in medium, the Hero 3 gives you much more. It's very satisfying and not overly fish-eyed, right? So I would recommend 1080p 60. The other thing you could do if you know it's not going to be super fast, some of the things that you're going to be doing, you could do the 2.7K 30 is very good to shoot in. That would be the reason I like to shoot in 2.7K 30. If you know you're not going to be doing the slow down effect, right? Then it gives you extra pixels that you can crop. Like most of the time you're going to be uploading to a Blu-ray or to YouTube. I know it will accept larger video, but the very satisfying, easy to work with format now is still 1080p, which is 1920 this wide, 1080 this wide. The 2.7 gives you much more pixels that can hang outside of a sequence, so that, let's say you didn't frame up your camera wasn't pointing just the right angle. A lot of times I'll shoot in 2.7 so I can slide it up, slide it down. The frame stays the same that I'm working in. I'm usually working in Premiere Pro CC, Adobe Premiere Pro. By the way, if you need help with this, I'll volunteer my help with this project and consult with you guys, because I really believe in what you're doing. I think it's an honor to help the military. I can't wait to see what you're going to get. I know it's going to be brilliant, awesome, inspiring video. But you're going to have a frame that you're working inside on the video, right? And you're going to have all these extra pixels if you shoot in 2.7. And then you can say you didn't frame it just right, you can shift it left or right, up and down, and you got extra pixels that are hanging outside of your field of view. So you can center things up, you can rotate them. Maybe your angle wasn't just quite right. You can rotate. 2.7K is awesome to work in. You won't be able to slow it down more than to about 50%. That would be a net of about 15 frames per second, but that still looks pretty nice. 1080p 60 in Adobe Premiere Pro CC, which is what I use a lot of times. You can also slow this video down now, again, in the free app that comes from, not free app, but yeah, the free GoPro Studio that comes from GoPro. You can slow 1080p 60 down to about 30%. It still looks pretty darn great. Still fairly smooth. I mean, you can start to see that you're doubling up on some pixels and stuff. But my recommendation is 1080p 60 for some of the things you're going to slow down. 1080p 48 is great. 1080p 30 is great. If you think you want to get a wider area, you got a medium field of view if you're using the Hero 3 Plus in 2.7K. I don't know if it gives you medium field of view on the old black edition Hero 3. It might not even be an option. I'm trying to remember. But on Hero 3 Plus, medium field of view 2.7K looks great. If you think you want to be able to get a wide expanse to see up there flying, you got some planes out here you want to see on the periphery, then I'd go to that wide field of view. 720p at 120 frames a second looks awesome slowed down. You're going to have to expand your pixels. In other words, you're going to have to blow your pixels up. Still, it will look pretty darn great. So if you got some where you really want to suspend time a little bit and make it look really slow, you can shoot at that 720p, 120 frames per second. You can blow your video up. It doesn't look bad. It doesn't look as good as 1080p, shot native 1080p, but still looks pretty darn great. And you can slow that baby down to like 25% and some really great slow motion kind of effects. So have fun with that. That's my best advice. As far as color and all goes, I don't think, unless you're going to be shooting in low light or very shady areas, if there's going to be a very dramatic, a light dark, let's say cliffs or something that are dark and you want to bring some things out of the shadows, then you might choose to go into Protune. It makes the files very big. You have to do some conversion, which makes them even bigger. It's better just to go ahead and shoot, in my humble opinion, just go ahead and shoot in regular mode, save the space on your hard drives that you're working with, and just let your software, hopefully you've got a good color grading software that you need to pump up the saturation a little bit or pump up some brightness contrast. There's two effects I use primarily to make my videos pop. That's brightness contrast. I've got some videos that show how to do that. And then three-way color corrector in Adobe Premiere Pro CC, where you can bump up saturation. It really makes it look nice. If you don't have access to those programs, you know, it might not be as easy to work with, but I swear I think you're going to do brilliant things with this. As far as sharpness goes, you stay in one of those three modes, 1080p, 720p. It's going to be a little less sharp than the 1080p, or 2.7K. The other thing too with 2.7K is, let's say you got all those extra pixels outside of the frame, right? They're out here. If you want to squash them down and make them all fit inside that, it does make a very nice sharp looking piece of video. It's still going to be 1080p when you squash it down, but it does really have, to me, almost a superior level of sharpness. Yeah, if you're flying through areas where, let's say you're headed through some kind of canyon or something, right, and there's all kinds of rocks changing left and right, they are going to pixelate. They're not going to be as bad when you're doing your editing. What you see on your screen is going to look great. What you see when you go up to YouTube is probably not going to be as great. But there are some tricks you can do. You can do all this slow motion and everything, and you can drop your frame rate when you render out. You can, instead of submitting to YouTube at 30 frames per second, you could go to 24, you could go to 15. Still, you're going to get that awesome sense of motion, but it allows for a little more detail when it renders out those frames. In other words, the MPEG compression isn't having to render out as much data as fast. It's rendering out this beautiful data more at 15 frames per second. Even though you might have shot it at 60, it doesn't matter. That's when it comes to outputting this. It's a little bit different. So we'll talk. I would shoot at 1080p 60, 1080p 48. I'd shoot medium field of view, wide field of view. Wouldn't shoot narrow field of view for the most part, unless you see some reason to do that. Experiment some with 2.7K. I like the medium. 2.7K wides are not bad, but the medium 2.7K is very flexible. That's only 30 frames per second. That's if you don't want to have to slow down. And then if you got something you really want to shoot fast, that you want to really slow down a lot, shoot the 720p 120. For those time lapses where where the camera stays stationary or just moves slightly, a lot of people will put their cameras onto GoPros on top of an egg timer and let the egg timer turn it very slowly, right? Very slowly, and you're shooting an image. Usually 1 frame every 5 seconds on the time lapse works really great. You could do 2 seconds. It really doesn't matter. It depends on how much time you've got to do that. And then what you do, you let that render out as a video clip. I think I have a video that shows how to do that, or can send you a link to that. And that will give you those awesome time lapses where the camera is stationary. I hope that happens. Really helps there, Captain. Proud of you guys. Honored to be a help with this project. Hope my advice helps. Would love to see what you're going to do. And we'll look at your other example here just in a few minutes. You know, go out there and do a great job. Peace to all. God bless you.